Embluk says, you always have great advice for everything. Thank you. I appreciate that. What is your advice for dealing with a breakup and moving on? Oh, man, I'm sorry. Yeah. You know, I hope what I'm about to say is instructive. I was talking earlier about the workbench being a mitigating structure for me in dealing with my large emotions. And one of the strategies I've come to understand about my large emotions is that they're temporary. They're irrational and they're temporary. They feel otherwise. But in truth, they are irrational and they are temporary. And I have done a lot of just removing myself from a situation that was activating me. And I have learned that when I have large emotions, it's not just like 20, 30 minutes to let it pass. It's more like 2 or 3 hours. Like I really gotta kind of sit with it, like let that pass. And a breakup is a huge, huge and significant life change. I have been there. I've just celebrated my 20th anniversary with my wife, and I had a 10-year, 8.5-year marriage before that. So I've been where you are. And the reason I said what I said is because time is about the only thing. Moving on is something that it's a grind. It's just time. And it's almost like I talked all over the video of the elevator build about tedium and about making friends with tedium, embracing tedium. And there's a way in which I'm saying the same thing here about emotions, that after a breakup, emotions are all over the place. And it takes a while for this newly configured life that no longer includes this other person to kind of come to some stable mean. And that just takes time. There's a piece of advice, this is difficult, but there's a piece of advice that I think is really great here. There was an old This American Life about a parent who had lost a child. And they said that in the aftermath of the horror of this unthinkable event, that most of what everyone had to say was useless, because what can you say in the face of such a tragedy? But they did hear one thing that helped get them through, and it was someone they loved telling them, you will find with time that you can get used to anything. And I think that's a beautiful lesson about being a person. In that it acknowledges that something has inexorably changed and it is not going back to the normal. We frequently have to confront that in our lives, right? And the speaker was saying, it's never going away what you feel, but you'll be able to incorporate it. You'll be able to move, you'll be able to deal while this is still there. It doesn't feel like that right now, but that will happen. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, hey, I wanted to say one thing, because I was complaining in the video about the Elf elevator about my hatred of the door open and door close buttons, specifically the little triangles. And in the comments, I'm getting dragged up and down for my nativist English speaking myopia, and that I want door open and door closed spelled out. And the truth is, I totally get international symbols, and I do not think that all elevators around the world should have door open and door close written on them. I am happy that mine does, and I also heard from a lot of you that for you, the door open, doors closed buttons are very quickly readable, which is great. I'm delighted for you. So I was not stumping for removing international symbols that allow people who speak other languages to understand what's going on. I support that entirely. I think the whole world should exist in that frame. Totally. And the specific execution in elevators of those triangles is shite. I will fight you on that one. All right, let's see here. Slim Pickings, do you have any There's a lot of interesting questions this week. Slim Pickings says, do you have any tips to avoid burnout in a new career? Burnout in a new career is real. A new career can be absolutely overwhelming. I think that burnout occurs when there is a gulf between the energy expenditure versus the expectation of energy expenditure. And you're going to have to answer for yourself. If it's a new career, okay, so there's a lot going on here. If it's a new career and you're a young person, that's different than if it's a new career and you're like in your 40s, because you have different amounts of energy to sort of suffer through things in your 20s than you do in your 40s. But I think that if there's anything that I have to give as terms of advice here, it's that if you're feeling burnout in your new career, obviously look for mitigating strategies for that, and keep asking yourself if this is worth it. Keep trying to zoom out from where you are and see the possible futures potentially available to you from this burnout, and ask yourself if it's worth the suffering that you're going through. And I know, look, I really, really, really understand, like, the job market is really difficult, and we don't all get to make these decisions in a vacuum. Like, they are all interdependent upon each other. And like, the job market being rough colors these decisions really, really a lot, to use good words. But I think that examining those questions and regardless of the external circumstances, asking yourself if this reality is acceptable to you or would you like to change things about it, is one of the most important life things that I have learned to do. And also to use the experience you're having to ask yourself what you would like work to be like in a possible future. That is another thing you can do with the difficulty that you're having, is to examine it and start to think about the ways in which a job you love would feel. I advise young people a lot to think about how you want work to feel, not just to be. Like, not just what you want to do, but how do you want to feel when you're doing it? Do you want to feel alone? Do you want to feel supported? Do you want to feel collaborative? Do you want to feel like you're the problem solver? Like, these are all different realities. And burnout is really, really difficult. I went through some burnout in the mid section of Mythbusters. 5 years in, 6 years in, 2008, 2009. I was not getting enough sleep. I was super stressed out. I was emotionally dysregulated all over the place. And that's when I went through a really studied program of, I took up meditation. I gave up alcohol. I learned that left to my own devices, my body needed 7.5 hours of sleep a night. And so I started to try and make absolutely sure I got that. And if I didn't, I'd top it up with a nap. I have always exercised my sleep patterns like a gas tank. And that has served me pretty well in terms of my energy output over the years. And it becomes more and more mission critical the older I get, because my recovery time gets longer the older I get. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I wanted to briefly mention that you could become a tested member. I know, everybody is competing for you to become a member of their thing. What I want to express to you is that the Tested membership has become such an important part of the Tested family. We get tremendous feedback from the Tested members, and they expand the stories that we can tell and the things that we have access to. And you can become a part of it right now by clicking on the link below. See you in the chat.